So solar energy is booming, but there's some key things that everyone needs to understand about home insurance here in Florida if they're considering solar. So the first thing I would say is when I do mention solar, I'm not talking about the thermal solar water heaters for pools, but I'm talking about the energy electricity generating solar panels. So first question may be, why are companies even having any challenge or hesitation with solar, given the fact that it is being pushed pretty heavily and has a lot of benefits? One item is the fact that when there is some sort of added item to a roof, it can increase the chance of some sort of issue, whether that be a leak or wind damage or something else. Another aspect is the fact that when you have to replace a roof, maybe a storm damages the roof or something else happens, anytime you have solar on there, you're now looking at a significantly increased cost because there has to be a professional removal of all of those panels and electrical equipment. Then you have to put the regular roof on. Then you have to go and have someone put everything back up for the solar. So that adds a lot of extra costs, not to mention the extra risk of something being mishandled or broken, electrical connections not being handled correctly. So there's a lot of extra costs if you have to replace a roof that has solar on it. The last thing that I would mention that does come into play, it really depends on how much solar you have and whether or not you are doing what's called net metering. Net metering is basically where you are overproducing electricity for your needs, and therefore you are going back to the utility company. In our area, that would be TECO, and you're effectively either selling back or getting credits for the extra electricity that you're generating. And when you do that, they generally have extra requirements because you're effectively becoming an energy producer for them. That's extra things such as high liability, $1 million liability policies, things like that. So that's another aspect that the insurance companies are looking at when they're considering whether or not this adds risk to them. So if you're considering solar, what do you do? Well, a couple things. Number one, you need to increase the amount of coverage on your insurance policy to make sure that you have enough to cover the extra value. Now, the value can vary. I mean, you've got the materials, you've got the labor, but in general, we're seeing anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 for a normal array of solar panels. So you have to make sure that you have sufficient coverage on your dwelling for those extra panels. Second thing you need to understand is that not all companies are even interested in solar. So what I would strongly suggest is talk with your insurance agent before you even begin, because there are several companies that still have no interest in insuring a house that has solar on it. I hear it all the time. I see the notification, someone added solar, no one asked anybody, and now they're being non-renewed, they're being canceled. We have to go find another option. So just make sure you have that discussion with your agent before you do it so that you're not surprised later on. Some of the companies, they have certain limits on whether or not there's net metering going on. Some of them will take it as long as it's only a certain number of panels or electricity being generated, which puts you into different tiers. So there's several things that can come into play. Even if your current company is fine having solar, you do need to understand that you have probably, by adding solar, you've probably removed at least a handful or more of the companies come next year or the year after when you're going to shop your insurance policy. The last thing I would say is in regard to what the trend is for home insurance companies in Florida. Not only are you seeing some that don't want it, but those who do cover it are starting to make some adjustments with their policy language around solar. So a few of the companies have begun excluding solar panels completely, okay? But then they offer a buyback option so that you can do so. So just quick, for example, someone who has about $20,000 to $30,000 worth of panels, on some of these companies, you're looking at between $700 and $1,000 extra dollars if you want to buy back solar coverage for the panels. So this is really important to understand, because if you're calculating whether or not to do solar based on how much it costs and how much you're going to save, you need to understand that there could be a lot of extra expenses on the insurance side. And so I'd hate for someone to feel like this was a really good cost-benefit analysis, when in turns they completely ignored a $700 to $1,000 a year expense based on the new insurance costs for solar. So in summary, in terms of solar for home insurance here in Florida, a couple key things. Number one, do not assume it's automatically covered. In fact, don't assume your policy won't be canceled if you add solar, because many companies still are not really comfortable with it. Second thing is, the sooner you talk with your agent about it, the better chance you have to make sure that you're going to not encounter a lot of surprises, a lot of extra expenses. So that's a really important relationship to have and a really important discussion to have. So if you have any questions, certainly talk with your agent or give us a call at Meek Insurance, and we'll be happy to help you because we love helping people in their insurance.